Right on the heels of our episode 9 review with special guest Gavin Fox, we have a very special interview here for you. We have the lovely, the amazing, the amazingly talented and emotional this past episode. Holy Mother of God. We have the amazing Kelly McCormack on the line with us right now. We're about to talk with her. Stay tuned.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
So, episode 9, Killjoys, Weege dies, Pip dies. Spoiler alert, it happened.
Yes.
But on the heels of them dying, we get some of the best acting we've seen in the show ever.
Oh, hands down. It was amazing.
And who did those scenes? Who did the acting in those scenes? Aside from the people who died.
I don't remember. I think it's some amazingly talented woman named Kelly McCormack.
Is it?
Have you heard of her?
I've heard of her, but I haven't heard her.
Oh.
But I think we can hear her right now because we have Kelly McCormack on the line.
Oh my gosh.
Welcome to the show.
Hey.
That was quite the intro.
If you ever need compliments, we're here. We're here to shower the compliments on you.
You guys in my pocket. It's
Yeah,
happening.
yeah, for sure.
So, we just come off episode 9, which I think is probably the biggest episode for your character so far. I'm assuming we're going to have even more big episodes for this character based on where the arc is going. From prediction-wise, like where we kind of see the character going. I never saw this character going this way last season. How has this ride been for you from being like kind of a stiffly written character last season, not really knowing what they were going to do with you, to now like, okay, let's start season 4 and have Pip, Zeph, they're members of the team, and we have this really great story arc lined up for them.
Yeah, I mean, it was a surprise to me as well. When I booked the part, it was really only for 2 episodes as a short recurring arc. But as it is with lots of network television shows, you know, they test out characters. And so it is kind of scary for sci-fi because you're kind of thinking, all right, like if I'm great, I get to live. And if I'm bad, I get to die. Which is like, kind of like a hard, you know, it's a lot of pressure to be under just to begin with, going to a set, especially one that had already done 2 seasons and had such great rapport with each other and loved each other so much. So stepping in was very nerve-wracking, and I didn't know what was in store. But yeah, in season 3, I had a wonderful arc of kind of learning how to be part of the team, learning how to trust stuff beyond science, because I imagine that Zeph, right before she met Team Austin Force, was this like lab-ridden, like she didn't like, all of her friends were her like science projects, and she didn't do a lot of like social interaction, and that was all season 3. And then season 4 has been going a step further, where she's kind of struck this really complicated and intimate relationship with Pip. So yeah, I mean, every time I read scripts for season 4, I was like, okay, cool. Okay, Zeph is doing a lot of heavy lifting. And it was just a pleasure and so exciting and fascinating that myself and the writers were kind of moving in tandem and crafting this character who has a lot more depth and layers than maybe we thought she would.
Yeah, and we've loved seeing your growth as your character. So actually going back to what you're saying, like diving into it and you're kind of like this lab rat character, did you have to do a lot of almost like go back to school kind of thing, do a lot of research so you could be, you know, really educated on what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't quite go back to school, but I definitely would spend a lot of time like reading Wikipedia articles about like hippocampuses. And like stuff like that, you know, pathogens and spores, a lot of spore chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's important. What was really important for me, for Zeph, is that this science to her is so second nature, to the point where, you know, she's so arrogant and she can speak to other people, and it's kind of like, what's wrong with you guys? Like, how do you guys not know this? This is obviously that's obviously what a centrifuge is, obviously. So it's important for me that I know the lines well enough, and I know the science well enough, and I can imagine it in my head, that I can make it real for myself in order to deliver that very fast-paced, casual high science in a way. But yeah, I don't know if I'm going to back to school, but definitely it's been fun to kind of revisit grade 9, grade 10 science, where I'm like, oh right, centrifuge, centrifugal force, got it. Cool.
I love it.
Based on what you just said, you were talking about how she went from being this more robotic scientific lab rat to being more of a not to use it as a derogatory term, but more human in terms of like emotionally with Pip. We get to see in, I think it was episode 2 or 3, where they're on that thing spiraling through space. Not Pip and Zeph, but Delsea and Davin and Johnny, and we get this montage of them doing funny stuff and being weird. I was wondering, did you guys film anything like that for Pip and Zeph when you guys are stuck on the ship with all the dolls and we just got it cut? Or are we just assuming that you guys just mostly had sex?
Canoodled.
Or thought? You guys were doing a lot of thinking.
Yeah, I think, God, I would have loved to have shot that. We did not, but I think it's probably because it would have been above our network grade, rated R. I don't know. I think you saw in their little thinking scene in episode 9 that their version of sex is very acrobatic and fun and weird, and like Zeph is very experimental, obviously she's a scientist. So, and I think Pip is too. So I don't know, it would have just been a lot of like Pip being hungry and complaining and Zeph trying to coerce him to having sex. I don't know. Atticus and I talked a lot about it. It was pretty funny. Yeah, I wish we had filmed us discussing what they did in the rack. Yeah. We did not.
I just want that like moment where you guys like decide. Like, is it just like, I imagine just Pip like sitting there being like in complete silence. So you're a girl, I'm a guy.
Let's make it happen.
I mean, it's kind of like the I said this in another interview, and then I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't say that, but whatever. Everyone, it's like that elevator fantasy where you're just like, if you're stuck in an elevator with literally anybody, would you just be like, so we're gonna have sex now, right?
Yes, elevator fantasy. I love that.
I wouldn't say literally anybody, but
I think anybody. I think you just feel like, all right, well, that time I got stuck in an elevator for how many hours, and you were like, this is what happened. You owe it to humanity, and everyone else is elevator.
All those elevator mechanics watching the show right now are like, sabotage the elevators.
I know, right? Creepy like, with their cameras. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, so do you think, all right, kind of going back to episode 9, do you think Zeph will blame Dutch, for a long time over everything that's happened?
I think pain is irrational by nature. Clearly she's in a lot of pain. Do I think it's rational that she's blaming Dutch wholly? Of course not. But she wasn't there when Pip made that decision. I think ultimately she blames herself, and I think that if she wasn't in pain, I think Zeph knew that she couldn't save him, and if she didn't have feelings for Pip, she probably would have, in her kind of emotionally detached way that we've kind of made Zeph, and I've worked hard to kind of craft her in these moments where she's not able to cross that threshold. I think she might have even volunteered Pip, because it's like, oh, well, you already have a spider in your brain. This makes sense. There's been a couple times where Zeph has made very clinical calls that aren't as empathetic as they could be, and Johnny's said something like, that's not how we do it here. So, but I think it's irrational, to answer your question, I think it's irrational that she's, blaming Dutch. But, as I said, Zeph was this science loner who trusted nothing else but science, and obviously has a background and an upbringing that's full of pain and full of heartbreak and trauma in many ways. And so Dutch in season 3 asked her, trust in me, trust in Team Awesome Force, trust in this new family. And season 3 was this really beautiful arc for Zeph, where she's learning to be a team player and learning how to bring people into her life at the same level as she's brought science into her life. And then season 4 is that second step where not only has she learned to accept this and trust this new family, she's learned to give her heart out a little bit, even, not 100%, but she has learned to, let it leave her crusty, intense science detached exterior. And it's really, that first conversation with Dutch in the Royal where she says, like, welcome to Team Awesome Force. I think that Zeph blames herself for Pip's death, and in some ways is mad at Dutch for even asking her to come on this ride in the first place, in a way. But again, it's irrational. She's in a lot of pain. Like her lover has just died. It's, yeah. Right. But yeah, I think it's complicated, and it's really going to be, without revealing anything, that kind of way that's played in the next episode, and then obviously in season 5, is very interesting. But Dutch is also the leader, and sometimes you blame the leader for things because they're supposed to keep everyone safe, and that's what she said. So, or bring everyone home.
Yeah.
All right, that was a hard scene to shoot though, because I love Hannah, and Zeph has such a hero complex for Dutch. And now I think that was kind of, it's like finding out, your parents are infallible, or that your hero is just a human being. I think that was hard for her to know that Dutch was there, and that she saw that happen and let it happen. But of course she wasn't there for the actual rational decision that Pip made. And Pip did make a very rational decision. So it's hard. Zeph's having a hard time.
Yeah, I don't blame her.
So
Sorry, it's getting like dark outside, so I'm like,
Setting the mood.
So I'm curious though with that is how deep, in your opinion, Kelly, how deep was the emotions that Zeph had for Pip? I mean, I know it's like they've always like bordered on it, but then at the end it was the I know scene where it's like where she is trying to say she loves him. But do you think this sets her up as a character to be more laissez-faire with her own life? Or do you think this pushes her to fight harder to live more?
Oh, man. I think Zeph has a deeply complicated relationship with trust and with relationships. I think she has a hard time trusting herself and her own happiness with other people. And that comes from a very deep and dark place of rejection and fragility that has to do with her backstory. And so I do think that she did love Pip. And but I don't know if she was able to put those into words clearly. She wasn't able to say them in the end. And Atticus and I, when we first kind of were reading the scripts and realizing that our characters were going to have this relationship, it was hilariously complicated too, because we were like, oh, well, we never see the beginnings of their relationship, so it's like season 4 starts with them just kind of in this like friends with benefits thing. So and as it goes on, he starts saying things to her that are so honest and so on point and so directly quoting who he sees her to be. And I think those kind of caught her by surprise, and the relationship deepened. And I think what we'll see from Zeph in the future is the reason as to why she's not able to, she has this, she's so brave and she has so much courage, and she's able to kind of go to the ends of the earth with science and ante up and work under pressure. But her just telling someone how she feels in a very direct way, especially someone that she loves and this human, this man in her life, is going to be complicated. And I love the show for creating space to watch someone struggle with that, because it's real, like when you can love someone but not forget where you came from and know that you come from a place of trauma or whatever. So
Right.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it definitely does. And just to jump off that, because we really laid this groundwork for Zeph as a character, it doesn't feel like we're going to be letting up. Obviously, like, some characters like, okay, we got their arc out of the way, let's go to the next one. It doesn't feel like that at all with Zeph, which is good. And Killjoys has always been good at not leaving characters behind. And we don't kill characters very often. So that's why it's crazy when you have this scene where 2 characters that they've built up for episodes at a time are gone now, and you're like, whoa. It gave us an emotional journey with Turin when we kill Weege, because it's the first time we actually see a human side to Turin when he's caring about something that's not like something that directly benefits him. It's just somebody who he's been interacting with lately. And now with Zeph, now that Pip's not in the situation, we laid the groundwork in episode 9 for your past, your homeland. We get a little bit of that information about Leith. I'm curious, are we going to be going there in season 5? I know if you can't tell me yes or no if it's a spoiler or not, but I feel like it really set it up well, and it really kind of reminded me, I haven't seen Handmaid's Tale, but like from what I've heard, like this is kind of the vibe I got from how she was describing it, how he was describing it. What do you see Zeph going home to be like if we visited that in season 5?
I think it's definitely been said that it is kind of this Amish Handmaid's Tale religious esque place, and we will learn about her backstory more without revealing anything. But to make assumptions about places like that, you could think, well, she obviously comes from like a very heavily religious background that has its own idea of right and wrong that she obviously doesn't aspire to anymore. And so if she's no longer there and she's at a point where she's the direct opposite, so she's the scientist who's independent and all that, it clearly means that she's left a lot behind, her entire family. And she's been on her own for a while and made a very hard choice in her life to pursue something else and pursue her passion. So, and I think that there has been slight nods to it. I mean, I know that when they wrote Zeph, they had already thought of like where she came from the very beginning. So this was something that I've known about Zeph as long as I've been playing her. To the extent of where she comes from, we will find out in season 5. And I learned a lot more about that from the writers as they kind of built what that was. But if you kind of, there has been some breadcrumbs about it throughout the way. You know, she talks about, she's a natural scientist, she's a biologist, she knows everything about nature, and she's a couple times talked about growing up on a farm and growing, you know, she was delivering calves by the time she was 12. So I think it's a really beautiful thing to know that Zeph comes from nature and comes from this maybe off the grid place where she had really tangible interactions with the natural environment, and then has kind of excommunicated herself from that and is now a natural scientist. And the big mystery is why there's so much pain between that and that time period and where she is now. But it is, without saying much, all I can say is it's one of the greatest backstories I've ever been given as a character. Wow. Ever. And it's so in line with, it puts it all, I can't say much.
Okay.
I mean, I think your line on 9 was what we really connected with. I think you wrote the line down.
The middle, not the middle.
Not the middle. It was.
Oh my God.
Like, at what point do I stop being considered broken and start being
the victim? What point do I stop being the victim and start actually caring for myself?
Being able to be myself.
Something like that.
Just a trauma, something. What gets to be mine?
Right.
Yeah, it was. So Julian Doucette wrote the episode, and it's impossible to not make those moments in the script real for yourself. And I do think that it's kind of wild because as a woman, like we relate to these moments of trying, these moments of trauma that she's had that have clearly been like with all of her sisters and whatnot. She's saying, I want to be this person now. And the idea that Pip would say, well, this is just like your kind of familial baggage, and her saying, well, what if this is just who I am, and this is part of the fabric of who I am today? I thought that was such a powerful statement and something that I haven't been able to say on camera before. And I know that me and Julian went through a lot of the feels while we were shooting that scene, and also as well with Pip's death scene, because it's really powerful, and I think it's something that a lot of people can relate to. And it was wild because we were shooting it also kind of like during the Me Too movement, where all these women were talking about terrible things that had happened to them growing up, and what that makes us now as women. So it was kind of like a weird parallel when we were shooting that as well. So just throw that. It was definitely a beautiful line to get, and something that I was really thankful for as an actor and as also a human being, just to say, because it's true. It's like, when does it stop being just, something I have to atone for, or something I have to work through, and when can the things that I want, aka not, or Zeph want, not being in a relationship, not saying that they love someone to someone, not keeping yourself safe or self-preservation, when can those things stop just being familial baggage and start being just choices that we make, just like choices we make in our daily life all the time? So it was really cool. Yeah.
Do you find yourself, when you're going through, like you said, feeling all the feels, and Pip dying and all that, does that affect you in your just normal day-to-day life? Like going through those intense emotions on set and then going home? Like, does it carry on with you, or not really?
No, it absolutely does.
Yeah.
You can't, like a Pip, it's so hot in my apartment, so I'm just like, I turn the AC off because it's so hot in Toronto, and I'm just like, oh God.
Shoot.
So, you can't really deliver, you can't really work through those scenes, like the one with Pip's, the phone call, without really making it real for yourself. And it was real, you know, like that's, you have to do the work. And as an actor, you prepare for these moments just by keeping yourself open and keeping yourself available to be ready when those scripts come your way.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a hard day on set, especially because I love Atticus and working with him has been like the joy of season 4 for me. And it was really hard. Yeah, like you're not, you just bawled your eyes out. And
Yeah,
you're like,
I did
and
too.
then you leave and you're like, oh God, and your hands are shaking and whatever. You know, it's you have to make it real for yourself, and you can't fake it. And so it's not like when they call cut, those feelings just go away. And it was also sad because Atticus was leaving.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, for sure.
With that filming, I'm curious, how was that scene filmed? Was he in the room while you were delivering your lines, or did you hear his lines through an intercom or something to make it more real for you?
He was in the room. We shot that in like one setup. So the camera's on me answering Johnny when I was like, oh, Dutch or fancy, whatever. And it was one take. So they just go like from the cube all the way to the front. And then Aaron was standing behind me. And then we were in the Armada. Atticus was just sitting behind the camera in his like jeans and a hoodie. just listening to me and being emotionally present for me and being incredible and just saying the lines very much in the way that he would just talk to me. It was so nice because we shot that scene, the phone call, in just 2 takes. It was just 2 takes of all right, and no coverage. It wasn't like, okay, let's get it from this angle. Basically, I just walked towards the camera and got on the phone with him, and he was there, and it was kind of interesting because he, as I said the line, he kind of like gave it a couple beats before he answered. So there was this constant fear of like, have I lost him already? Like, is he gone? Like, has it happened? Like, you're just waiting for someone on the line. And yeah, it was a hard scene to shoot, but also as an actor, you know, it's those weird things where it's emotionally hard, but as an actor, it really fulfills a cathartic. It really feeds you as an artist because you feel like you've really gone somewhere. And luckily, the writing was so good. Like the turn of phrases and every word of that scene was so brilliantly written and so heartbreaking that it wasn't very hard to get to a place where it was there.
Oh, I'm like tearing up hearing about it again because it was so good.
It was definitely intense.
Yeah.
And I mentioned it on the show yesterday, but just the beat that they gave after he said, we'll meet in the middle, where like instead of just him exploding right away, like we just have a beat of him just like staring for like 5 seconds.
I know. And originally those last pips weren't actually there. I just think when we were shooting it, I remember just still very much being in it, and I just started yelling his name because that's what you do. You're like, is it over? Like, is this done? Because it didn't feel like there was no button to the scene beside meet in the middle. And of course, Zeph would be like, what? Hey, what are you talking about? What's happening? Yeah. Like, you know, and I loved the way that they edited it together. It was really beautiful. I just watched it last night, actually, because I hadn't seen it yet. We were shooting. I've been very stressed out. I'm like, I can't watch this yet. But yeah, it was so beautifully written, and Atticus was so wonderful to be on set with me that day. And you know, like, and when you shoot stuff like that, the whole crew kind of just like the energy centers, and everyone kind of gets quiet and lets you kind of do your thing. And the crew on Killjoys, as I'm sure you've heard from every actor who's come on here, is just the best. We all love each other. So, and then I drank so much wine and ate so much pizza.
You earned it. You earned it, girl. Do you guys ever watch the episodes together?
Well, no. I mean, because we're usually shooting on Fridays, so it's like it's hard because on Fridays, typically for any film shoot is when you shoot really, really late at night because the days start later every week do you guys, it's usually called a Fraturday. So it's like normally go into Saturday when you're shooting on Fridays. So oftentimes when a show airs on Friday, it's hard for actors to watch it. There have been a couple times like Hannah and I watched the pilot or the first episode of season 4 with the Johnny Hannah backstory, which was so much fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard because those are the times you're normally shooting, and it's kind of fun to know, like, while you're shooting, you're like, the world is finding out this tonight. Yeah, Like I was shooting on Friday night when the Pip death happened, and I was looking at my phone, getting all these tweets, being like, "Why did you make me cry?"
So they're still filming until the 25th. Is your character already wrapped with your scenes, or are you still filming alongside them until the 25th?
We are still filming, which shouldn't spoil anything because people.
Yeah, they film out of order.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we're still shooting. I think my last day is on Friday, so a lot of feels,
Yeah.
Yeah. What's going through your mind right now? Has it even hit you yet that like it's the end of the series?
I mean, what's going through my mind? Normally what goes through my mind is the fear that I'll never work again, which is just the fear, It's like, well, this is the last time I'll ever have a job. That's just the self-doubt, pool of fraud syndrome bullshit. But it's. I mean, I haven't been on the show as long as Aaron, Luke, and Hannah, so I can't imagine what they're going through. This has been their home for the past 5 years. It's hard. It's really hard. I've ended other shows before, and it's felt a little different. This is difficult because everyone loves each other, and we all get along so well. And yeah, it's rough. Like every time you do something last, every time you put on one piece of costume last, you're like, oh, this is the last time I'll be in this costume, or the last time I'll be on this set, or the last time I have a scene with this actor. It's brutal. It's like a very long, trailed out series of goodbyes.
Oh, yeah. That's
Yeah,
hard. Do you think you'll stay in Canada?
Sorry?
Do you think you'll stay in Canada?
Yes. Well, kind of. I'm from Canada. I'm from Vancouver, and I live in Toronto, but I go to Los Angeles for half the year and New York as well. So I kind of move around. I really don't live in one place. I have this like one room apartment. I live in one box. That's why I turned the camera. I was like,
See your whole house.
There's my laundry. There's my studio apartment. I'll stay in Canada for a bit, but I go to Los Angeles for half the year, and I don't know where I'm gonna do.
Cool.
I don't know.
Hey.
Never work again.
That's the fun of it. Just bop around.
Is there an actor on the show that you didn't get to work with that you just like, damn, I really wanted to? Because I guess like in season, you might not have worked with Klein yet, but possibly in season 5, there's scenes and you don't want to say that. Okay.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to work with Klein.
Yeah.
Rob Stewart's great. He's phenomenal.
Gosh.
Rob's the best. Who have I not worked with? I mean, there was some, sometimes the Team Awesome Force gets pulled apart. So, these guys will go here and we'll go here. And then you'll watch an episode or you'll see it. You'll walk through the studio and be like, what's that set? And they're like, oh, that's the blah, blah planet. And you're like, why did I get to go on the blah, blah planet? So unfair. So, I mean, like, I feel like everyone by season 5 has a chance to like work together without spoiling anything. But I really wanted to go outside because Zeph never gets to go outside.
Oh, yeah,
so after the end of season 4, I was like angling for like a good planet adventure, which may have happened. So Zeph has been like a recluse and totally like confined to her various labs.
Yeah.
But my labs are like they've been moved around a bunch like that. But I am very attached to all my lab stuff. I'm not holding like 3 or 4 props in a scene. I'm just like, am I doing anything? Is any of this good? Oh, yeah, vile.
That's so funny.
So we are 2 days away from the season 4 finale of Killjoys, where S gets real.
Yeah, it does.
In your best trailer voice, tease us the season 4 finale of Killjoys and tell people why they should watch.
The pressure is on.
Oh man. Well, I feel like Killjoys I just saw they released like ready for a skinny dip. We're going green.
Ready for a skinny dip.
I feel like we haven't seen the green for a while. Like the amazing that still green thing. So it's like, get ready for the green.
I like it.
Yeah, the green. I mean, it's so good. The finale is so crazy.
I bet. I can't even imagine. I don't even know.
I know. I'm kind of sticking with my prediction that the lady enters Jack.
Ooh.
And then we destroy the green at the end of season 4. The lady enters Jack, and then season 5 is Jack as the nemesis, and crazy stuff going down.
Maybe Zeph becomes the lady. Who knows?
Maybe. Zeph's so unpredictable at this point, I feel like.
It comes out and she's all like, I need a volunteer. And she's like, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I mean, Pip's gone, but Zeph could be preggers.
Hey, who knows? They were thinking a lot.
And a lot.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you noticed, Zeph is not too stoked on babies.
That's true.
Not at all.
Yeah, that's true.
Good thing Jack grew up fast.
I know, you were stuck with Jack, and you did not want to be.
And Johnny's like, not a baby fan. And she's like, no.
Yeah.
I like that Zeph is such like a ruthless scientist that she's like, babies are parasites. I don't understand why you don't understand that.
Right.
Come on. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's a pretty good prediction. My mother is just concerned. Hi, Mom.
Oh.
Mom's concerned that Zeph will be depressed. She doesn't want to see Zeph. She's like, well, Zeph will be so unhappy. I'm like, Mom, her boyfriend died. Sucks.
Yeah.
Well, even though your boyfriend died, speaking of what Shannon talked about on the show yesterday, where Zeph seemed a little into another character, we have a new iTunes review for the podcast, and it dives into this a little bit, and it's by Number One to Add. It says, Zeph or maybe Zaani will happen. I feel like it's going to happen. Zeph will air things out with Dutch and then come back, and she and Johnny will be sciencing, and Zeph will need to think, which is sad because I don't want Zeph to die. Wait, Pip died. Did Johnny and Pip hook up off camera? I could be wrong. Maybe it'll be Zeph or Zaach.
Wait, whoa. That's a lot of combinations of people.
Bow down to that. Yeah, I'll tell Aaron that. I'll be like, you know that if Pip died, because it's like because the whole thing is that anyone who hooks up with Johnny like dies.
Yeah.
Potter, no!
Oh, Potter.
Yeah. Oh God, that's so dark.
No.
I don't know. All I know is that I'm pretty sure if like Pip and Johnny had a thing, and like we're very fluid on the show of Killjoys. Probably,
Right.
I'm sure Zeph would have been like totally okay with it. She would have been like, yeah. it's
She just
amazing.
would have been
Yeah,
sad she wasn't
exactly.
involved, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, the best part about Killjoys is it's super fluid. Everyone's like, the relationships are so overlappy and fluid that that's probably why Pip died though. That person's right.
Yeah, because I mean, we talked about this we had Gavin on the show yesterday. Of course, Garrett Bear.
Yeah.
And he talked about that a little bit too, where it's not really whether it's a gay relationship or an interracial relationship or anything. It's just like a relationship. And, because a lot of fans were like wondering, is the character of Garrett gay? And you're like, well, there's not really a stance on it. Because you have Firusa, which he was in technically a BDSM relationship with, and she's a female. And then you have Tom Allison, you have Pre, and he's a guy, but he's a warlord. And it's like, it's never even broached on the subject. So kind of what you're telling us is that any shipping is fair game in this show.
Hell yeah.
Except Jack and anybody.
Yeah. Well, he's little.
Yeah, he's like 3 days
He's
old,
young,
so none of that.
Yeah, no. He should not.
Yeah, I mean, and that's by design. Like Michelle and Adam and all the writers, like that is all the thought, the genius behind the show and the thoughtfulness put into it. I mean, Killjoy's world is fluid, and it's also like in the future and in space. And I think the idea is, and Michelle Levretta has said this a lot, that if she's going to make this like imaginary world, that she might as well make it like the better version of the one we're living in. And I just think it's true. Like in the future, these things won't really be a discussion. I mean, even Zeph said in her conversation with Pitt, the post-thinking thing, she says, this is why I don't do relationships with dudes. And then a lot of people were reaching out to me being like, is Zeph bi? Is Zeph into women? I'm just like, well, yeah, she's probably into anything. Like, like it's just, I just don't think it's a discussion. I think, and I think I hope that's where we as a people will be at one point. I have a prediction that in a couple hundred years from now, people will look back at this time in history and be like, you guys had to say what? You had to declare what? That's so crazy. That's
Wait.
so wild.
100-person orgies weren't the daily norm?
Oh gosh, that's a little much.
A little bit much.
It's a little overwhelming.
Do you have one last question before we go, Shannon?
Just what has been your favorite scene so far?
Besides episode 9,
Yeah,
we got to
say
count that out
Yeah.
because it's too good.
That was like not very fun. Like I couldn't say that was a favorite. That'd be kind of masochistic. I was like, my favorite scene is when they killed Keven. No. My favorite scene thus far. I mean, I gotta say, and you're gonna hear this again from a lot of actors, and this is just like a disappointing answer, but like all of our favorite stuff is in season 5 because the writers go for broke. Like, and some of this stuff will be revealed like in the finale or whatever, but the stuff that we do in season 5 is like nothing else we've done on the show, like nothing else. So like they just, I think with knowing that the season's coming to an end, they can really, you know, go for broke and put all hands on deck. Let's just do all the stuff we want to do. So I have like 10 favorite scenes that are in season 5 before I could get to the other ones. But in season 4, I really enjoyed the awkward conversation that Atticus and I had about the relationship. Like, do you want to have sex? No, I'm just friends. Like that was really fun to shoot. And oh man, that's difficult. Well, the scene in season 9, the scene in episode 9 where I'm putting all those like finger things on Johnny, and he's all like, "Don't worry, like we'll when this is all over, we'll help Pip, and then we're bringing the cube, we're porting the green onto the cube." You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That was shot at like 3 a.m. on a Friday night.
Oh my gosh.
And Aaron and I just kept having these like laughing our asses off because I kept putting these like, we kept calling them these like finger bangers on his fingers.
Finger bangers, bringing back the finger banger.
No way.
Pow, 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 pow. It was so weird because I just like had all these knobs and these things, and it's 2 a.m. and everyone's tired. It's been a long week, and I just kept on being like, Aaron, we have the weirdest job.
Oh my gosh, that is so awesome.
What are we doing? He was just like, and he was like on the table and like the green, and that was really fun to shoot just because we were so tired and so delirious, and I'm putting these like finger things on his hand, and I was like, what is this prop? This is crazy.
Yeah.
So we are out of time, unfortunately.
You're so great.
I do want you to shout out where people can find you and do that, but I also want to know, and you probably can't tell me, but do I need to prepare my ceremonial mourning garb, like to be in mourning for season 5? Are we gonna say goodbye to people?
I can't say that.
I know.
I'm like, what? Cannot answer that.
Where can we find you on social media, Kelly?
Okay. You're just like asking that to everyone to see who cracks.
Basically.
Okay, I'll tell you. Where am I on social media? Oh, I'm on Twitter at Kel McCormack, and I'm on Instagram at Kelly and Phyllis, and that's about it. Yeah, I have a production company called Floiter Films, which is at www.floiterfilms.com.
Oh, cool.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Right on.
And where can we find you, Miss Shannon?
Oh, and you guys can find me on Instagram at Shannikin_Skywalker and on Twitter at ShanOC.
Sweet. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Kelly. Of course, we'll try to get you back next season too. I can't wait to tweet about what happens in the finale this Friday.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
Thank you so much. It was so much fun to finally chat with you guys.
Yeah, you're so great.
Yay. Bye. We'll talk to you soon. You guys can find me on Twitter at Stephen Lemieux, STPHNLAMIEUX, or possibly doing the Gifted After Show starting next week, but we got the Killjoys After Show next Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm going to try to line up some more interviews if we can, but if we can't, we will be back next season after that.
Yeah, wow.
But I think for the final season of Killjoys, we will pack a guest into every single episode. I think we can make that promise because they won't be filming. It's been pretty difficult this season because they have been actively filming for every week these episodes have been airing. But we are out of time. Thank you so much for joining me today, Shannon.
It's been fun. Thanks
and
for
we will
having me.
see you guys next Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for the finale of Killjoys Season 4.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.